Hello, I am Professor Noah Arceneaux from the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State University, and I'm making this video just for my own personal amusement. This is just something I'm doing for fun for myself, and I'm sharing this with my colleagues who are also into comics here at SDSU, particularly the working group Comics at SDSU. Um, again, I don't research comics. I've got I'm a collector. I've got more comics than some people. I've got fewer than others. Altogether, I think I've got about 13 short boxes of comics, including this one particular box where I put my independent titles, my indie titles. I've got some issues of Hate comics in there. I've also got this Reagan's Raiders. I've got 3 copies of that. And then I've also got this, I bought this some time ago, a comic by Radio Shack. Radio Shack science fair story of electronics. And I shared an image of this online, and one of my friends, Devlin, shout out to Devlin from Walk Street. Here's a Bizarro Walk Street. Here's a Walk Street t-shirt. Anyway, Devlin says at his comic shop, he's got a lot of comics similar to this. I guess Radio Shack had a series of comics. First, it was a science fair story of electronics, and then it became Radio Shack History of Electronics from the early 70s up until 1991, where they've kind of foretell the future, what electronics are coming, how wonderful electronics are. And obviously Radio Shack is also giving away these comic books, trying to induce you so you buy the new type of gadgets from Radio Shack. There was also a title came out together. Radio Shack and Tandy, the Tandy Corporation, put out this series called The Whiz Kids. This ran from the early 80s again until 1991. And Devlin said he had a bunch of copies of these Whiz Kids comics. So the next time I went back to Athens, Georgia, I bought several copies of these. They didn't cost much money. I don't think they're especially collectible. But as a media historian, I found them to be quite fascinating as a little artifact. They tell the story. We have 2 kids, Alec and Shanna, and the story of the Whiz Kids comics is pretty similar in every one. As far as I can tell, they're all basically the same. In the beginning, the kids learn about electronics from a female teacher. They learn about modems and dial-up and this thing called the internet. And then later, in the later pages, they solve some type of crime or dilemma, kidnapping or something through the wondrous electronics that they have. And what I thought was really cool about these comics is that they are, I love this sort of dated, nostalgic visions of the future, like a dated vision of the future, what we thought the future was going to look like from the vantage point of 1984, which is always kind of fun to look at. And they're also teaching people about electronics. I mean, they would include a glossary of new lingo and new terms to use. So they're teaching people about electronics. There was also a Whiz Kids comic that came out in conjunction with Superman. I don't have a copy of this one. I had to snag this image from eBay. And there's also an overlap between the Whiz Kids and Archie. The Archie comics may have actually been the publisher of the Whiz Kids comics. So in one of the issues that I have, the Archie characters appear. And then there is also separately, Archie Presents History of Electronics, which is another Radio Shack publication. And then I immediately put this together and thought about another phenomenon that I knew about. I study radio history. That's mostly what I do. And I knew that decades ago, there were many books, titles of juvenile literature about young people, usually boys, but often young girls as well, learning about wireless telegraphy or radio, and then using the technology, which was new in the 1920s and 1930s. They were using that new technology again to solve crimes. I borrowed this presentation from a friend of mine, another radio historian, a guy named Mike Adams, now a retired professor from San Jose State University. Thanks, Mike, for all your wonderful work. And who actually, he took the time to put all these different publications together and wrote a book. You can actually get a book on this called The Radio Boys and Girls, which is all about this sort of genre of juvenile literature. And I immediately saw the Tandy Whiz Kids comics as being related to that. The book is divided into 4 sections according to sort of different eras of communication. And I didn't realize that the genre actually predates radio. It even predates wireless. Um, Mike has found some examples of stuff from before 1900 where they're using the telegraph in the same kind of manner. And then you have books about wireless, books about early wireless telegraphy, and then books about broadcasting as well. Here's some titles of some of the books I'm going to share with you. Again, this is from a presentation by Mike Adams. A lot of the early books, when it was dealing with wireless telegraphy, I guess storms and ships sinking was a big deal, because that was sort of the classic example of how wireless could broadcast a distress signal and save the day. Many of these books feature some type of maritime disaster, and that's a good book, Under the Sea. And then there were actually 4 different series called Radio Boys. That title was used by 4 different series in the 1920s. And we also have a couple titles of the Radio Girls. Radio Boys on the Mexican Border. Radio Boys First Wireless. There's the cover page there. Radio Boys at the Sending Station. Forward by Jack Benz. Jack Benz, famous wireless operator who sent a distress signal. I believe it was 1909. I'm just pulling that out of the depths of my knowledge, but he helped save a ship for sending a distress signal in 1909. Very famous. Jack Benz became a very, very popular celebrity for his heroic use of the technology. Here we have Radio Girls again. And that's it. I'm just going to end with this right here. But yeah, if you want more information about Mike Adams' book, radioboysandgirls.org. Anyway, I knew about this genre of fiction, but I was kind of impressed that Mike Adams, was able to put this together into a book. Anyway, that is my little video overview of my Radio Shack comics, and hopefully you learned something from this. And be on the lookout, when you're digging through those thrift stores or garage sales or estate sales. Hey, maybe you can find these. You can also find them on eBay. They don't cost a lot of money because they're not too collectible, but I just think they're really weird and interesting.